Thanks for being here. The work that we do every day, we hope we give you guys an opportunity to tell some really good stories. It's a lot going on inside the lines. Obviously, a bit of a new group. I'm sure you've already figured out they're really funny, really competitive, and we've got a lot of pieces that can do a lot of good things. So, a lot of good stuff at Carmichael. We've given you a really great schedule to cover, arguably the most competitive in the country, with playing likely playing three of the top Final Four teams from a year ago, and one of them twice, as well as obviously some really good home and away battles in our conference. New lighting board, new scoreboard, just a lot of great changes at the right time. So we're really excited about what we're about, the progress we've made, and the opportunities ahead. So your job is to write good stories. My job is to give you guys easy things and good things to write about. So you take care of yours. I'm gonna do my best to take care of mine. All right. But I'm here. I want to answer any questions you all have, and we'll take it from there.
The decision with Sierra and Layla seems a lot similar to a decision a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
What does that say about your approach? I mean, it seemed like you're more worried about the player than wins and losses at the time.
Yeah. It's never easy when a kid redshirts because you're delaying what you're excited about, right? Because we've been recruiting these kids for a long time, and so you kind of have your timeline of, I finally get to coach them. But I'll use Sierra as an example. As you know, she's a top 5 player out of high school. And we're really excited about what she could bring. And when it finally came down to it, she said, it's not about playing for 4 years. I want to be great for 4 years. And so she knows that instead of missing a portion of the season, she has an opportunity to train for a portion of the season at the college level and at the college pace. And so that will, I think, give her a much better onboard into her freshman year. And we have a lot of talented pieces, right? And so the rush is not real. And then Layla, same deal. I mean, she wants to come in and contribute and knows that, missing any time on this team is not helpful. So it's never an easy decision, even when it's the right one.
On the opposite side of that, how happy are you to finally have Tiani and Kayla be able to have a full 100% off season where they're not worried about rehab?
Yeah, gosh, yeah, I think. It's a basketball season, so unfortunately we haven't had them the full off season. That seems like a really long time, but at least they're either healthy or really close to healthy now. And these are kids that have had a lot of experience in the program, and I've been able to see what they do in spurts. I'm excited for you guys to see what they can do over a duration. And so, keep praying for their continued health because we're better when they're healthy.
Courtney, you've had an extended look at this team now with the new additions in there, obviously the returning players. What do you kind of make of the way that they've been able to gel and been able to click and all of that?
Yeah, the new guys, so the freshmen and the transfers make up 8 of them, right? And they bring such a youthful, even though some of them are older, like in Lexi's case, they bring this sort of, as I say, the immortality of the athletic spirit. Like they're young and they're like, yay, I can live forever. My body feels great. And I'm part of this great program and institution with the experienced guys that have the mortality of their athletic career, that they're working through and know that they came here to do big things. And they've still got some things to do to cross those off the list. So we have a really good blend of experience, new, and then also just an influx of talent. We got more talent at all positions than we had a year ago. And so that the depth of that should help us. What I've been really pleased with is some of the stuff we've done off the court as well as on the court. This team really likes one another. I've done this for a long time, and you try really hard in your recruiting process to make sure that's the case. But then there's an organic nature of every team, right? And this team they're lighthearted, they're funny, they're fun, they really like each other, and so we're on today's practice number 48, right? So we've been going for a while, and I think that their likability with one another will really help this season.
And kind of building off of that, Alyssa was telling me about the buddy system that you guys have.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about that and how it impacts, that team dynamic and that team that really likes each other.
Yeah, I think it's a good life skill to have someone you're responsible with and for, and who's responsible for you. And so when they get here, we put them either in a duo or a trio that you should always know how they're doing, right? I should be able to ask one how someone else in there, how their buddy's doing, and they should know, right? And so it's really a form of a kind of a connect that I think is really important. Obviously, it's strategically and intentionally created in terms of our matchups and things like that. But I think they've really gotten behind it. As a coach, you do what you can to show them what's important, but they've got to, just like we tell them how scoring the ball and defending together is really important. They have to kind of envision that and execute it, and they're doing a good job in that system.
And how long has that system been going on?
I brought that with me from Princeton. It's been something that You know, it also, the organizational help of like, hey, where's so-and-so? And then if she's late, the buddy can take some of that brunt off of it. So it's also, it's organizationally, it's like when you have too many kids, and you sort of say, is everybody here? Like in Home Alone, you make sure you don't leave anybody behind.
In terms of the 8 newcomers you have, what are the differences in recruiting a high school prospect where you can develop a relationship over the years versus a transfer player where you've only got, even a couple weeks at times to fortify that relationship and try to get them here?
It's such a good question. I think it's an undertold story that's part of it, right? Is that these high school kids, I've been into their home, they've been into my home, right? And so you've seen them so many times, it's almost ridiculous, right? And then with the transfers, you played against them maybe. In some cases, both India's and Maria's, I recruited them the first time, right? So I have a pretty good sense for who they are, but then they left, right? And so then you literally break up and you're like, all right, see you never, right? And then here they are, right? And then Lexi, I didn't know, it's a really neat story too, because very rarely do you get someone in the portal that you never knew, right? Never recruited the first time around. And so as much as that relationship is really important to build quickly and authentically to your personality, and start that in earnest, it's also important for our team. So we've done a lot of the stuff we did this summer, as well as some of the really intentional off the court things that we do as a program behind closed doors, is so that we literally did 2 truths and a lie the first week they were here. And they had to go find 3 teammates to do it with, because we told them, don't assume you know your teammates, So yeah, the including them by learning about them. You should know if they have siblings. You should know what they're afraid of. You should know some of their life experiences, and you're only going to get that by asking, because you don't have that natural runway. So we've been very intentional about that, and I think they feel really connected now.
Speaking of some of those newcomers, I think it's easy to look at them and say, wow, defense is probably going to be a big focus this year. Is that the intentional plan? How do you see that defensive effort coming together? 48 practices in, I think?
Yeah. Well, Lexi, you think obviously defense because of all that she's done on the Power 5 level defensively, but she also shot 36% from 3 at the Power 5 level, right? So she is a true two-way player. She's as impactful on the offensive end for us as she is the defensive end. She's super experienced. She started 95 games in college, so she brings a lot of accountability and tenacity, to both ends. She might actually be faster in a race than Alyssa Usby, and it's really fun to watch them run the floor in that way. And then Maria, same deal. I mean, she's a legit post threat in both sides of the ball. She's a shot blocker. I mean, I probably laugh at least once every day when she blocks somebody, because it's like, whoa, that was nice, right? But then offensively, she's a big, long threat inside too. So as much as they bring a lot defensively, I actually see them as two-way players, right? And then India, same deal. She came from Stanford, where she spent a lot of time just passing into the posts, and we want her to continue to go back to being the aggressive player that she was the last time I recruited her. So I think offensively, you'll just see her continue to grow as she understands there's less handcuffs in that way, offensively. But defensively, the kid can move, she can jump, she can. So I think in all 3 cases in the transfer side, they really did bring both sides of the ball to our team.
You talked about you had a previous relationship with India Maria. How did recruiting Lexi come about?
So we played them. 2 years ago, if we had beaten South Carolina in the Sweet 16 and they had beaten Creighton, we would have played each other. So you do those scouts, right? And so it was like, she's going to guard Deja, so now we got to play through, and you can't leave her open. And as soon as you guard her, she's going to take the one. I mean, it was like so annoying to have to guard her, right? Have to worry about her. And then last year we played her, and it was so annoying, right? And so she guarded Deja, and she got in foul trouble. So she missed a lot of the third quarter and went on a huge run. So that's kind of what I said when I called her. I said, hey, I'm tired of guarding you, and do you want to revisit the Iowa State game? Because that was a fun game for us to be a part of, and I like it when you're on the bench, et cetera. And so she had a really unique process that she wanted us to send her 5 games. She wanted kind of her top 10 schools to send her 5 games. She loved our style of play, and then on her visit, she watched a summer workout or a spring workout, and she was like, do they always go this hard? And I was like, yeah, that's what we do, and so she felt like in the spring when people maybe aren't as serious about their craft, the seriousness that we brought. So it was truly like a speed dating recruiting process that happened over, a 2-week period. But I just DM'd her, and I was like, just throw my hat in the ring, call me, and the rest is history.
DMs On which specific social
I think
media?
I think it was Instagram.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm swaggy enough to do it on Twitter yet. I don't even know if you can do it. And if we are, I'll have to learn.
With the extra depth, do you expect to play at a higher tempo than last season?
I hope
how,
so.
how will it be different?
You know, I hope so. You only play 5 at a time, and so, you know, I don't think we want to get, for these top teams in the country, you don't want to play 5-on-5 if you have 10 deep, 11 deep, 12 deep, 13 deep, etc. So we want to use them all. You have to tire the other guys out, right? And so I hope so. You know, my mother would like everyone to play every game the exact same amount of minutes as each other, right? I'm sort of more about winning the game, whatever that takes. But if any time that we can use our depth to our advantage, we will plan to do so. And it's not only utilizing the skills and talents of our current team, but it exhausts maybe some of the stars that we're going to see on the other side of the ball. You know, so if some of these people that you know are on our schedule, if they have to deal with a relentless attack on both ends for, you know, the whole game, that makes them less effective. So I hope so. You know, it's just that we need 15 guys that can play at the level I need them to play at.
How's a half-court game going to change with so much height?
We've got a lot more. We move the ball better. We've got more threats at every position. We shoot the ball better. We've got more ball handlers. Got more creators. Really, a lot of ways. We're playing much more open system because we can have multiple. We can play really small and fast. We can play really big and fast. We can play, you know. So we've kind of got a variety of continuities that are affected by which lineup is in. But we're just deeper, I think, and better at all spots.
No, there really isn't an off season in college sports anymore. But when do you think that you mentally turned the page from last season to this season? Was it the minute after Ohio State ended? Was it first practice? When do you think that happened?
I think you're so fatigued at the end of the season. I remember walking off the court after Ohio State and knowing you're that close and all the things. You immediately go to what could we have done differently, all the things. And then you wake up the next day if you slept at all and it's like, okay, move along, right? And April is really a challenging month because it becomes a critical part of not only retaining your own team of the members that want to be there, but the transfer portal and your recruiting 2024s in that, you know, last year's case. So I think I gained like almost 10 pounds because you're eating out every meal every day with a different human, you know. So it's like but yeah, April was a hard month, and so you're just constantly you change pretty quick because now you're focusing on the next year, and it starts with your rostering.
Getting back to the depth on this roster, when you look at the composition of this team, there's a good possibility you're going to have, you know, high 5 stars and even 4 stars coming off the bench. Is this the deepest team that you've ever coached? And if so, was there a moment over the summer that kind of took you aback and you were like, oh wow, you know, this is a really talented team?
Yeah, I mean, as much as we know the transfers, until you see them in your system and how we practice and what we require, watching the growth even of our really good transfers, watching them get better, I was like, oh boy, we could be good, you know, because I kind of already knew what we had coming back. But by far, it's the deepest team positionally and collection of talent. Because I think the talent does one of two things. If you have surrounded by talent, you either wither and die, otherwise known as transfer, or you rise to it because you know the train's going to move, right? And if you're not on it, it's moving regardless. And so the talent and the likability of this group has really brought in everybody a little bit more closer to where we want to go. So yeah, it is a deeper team. I think. I mean, we played ourselves for 48 days and our scrimmage guys, right? But you know, we certainly have more options, which gives us more chance to be held accountable when you can sort of say, well, someone else will do that. So we'll just, you know, it's not a drop off.
What about the flexibility on ball handling? You have all the lead guards who came back from last year. Lexi told me she could take the ball up court, and India said she could take the ball up court. How will you use that ability?
Playing a college basketball game without a point guard is really, I'd rather play with anybody else, but a point guard who can like handle the ball and dictate offense, I think is really important. And so we just want to make sure we have that covered, right? And so part of our system is that doesn't have to always go through a Kayla or a Naya or a Deja or a Paulina or right? It can, if you want to play fast, it's got to go whoever's closest, right? So we certainly prioritize combo guards, and really at the pro level, that's what they are now. There's very few true point guards because of the speed and versatility of the game and the other players. So, you know, the combo guard was by design to have so many guys that could handle the ball.
More big picture question. You've joked in the past about, you know, all the 25-year-olds, that kind of thing, that are out on the court. Do you think it's harder now for freshmen to come in and make an immediate impact with the remaining COVID fifth years that are out there?
For sure, and the 24 class is living with that right now, right? Because they've got they're the last class so I've got 2 now redshirting, and of course we've got some guys that could come back if they want, so, for sure, it's, also in a program like us, we've gotten to the point, we've proven it that we can go in the portal if we want to, right? And so we're not going to recruit freshmen that can't help us play, that can't come in and make a difference. Having said that, there's an adjustment. I mean, Sierra Toomey is the 4th ranked player in the country, and one could say the 1st ranked player in the country. She would have an adjustment too, right? And so, I think that if you come in and play right away and it's easy, you didn't play up with your level.
Courtney, we obviously talk a lot about the newcomers on the team, but the class of 2020, Deja, Alyssa, and all of them have, they've played their entire careers under you.
Yeah.
How does their experience kind of help with this team, their familiarity with how things kind of run and all of that?
So much, and they know where we've been and where we want to go, and they can be the carriers of that, right? And all 4 of them embody the progress we've made, right? And so, if you look at Deja, the story of Deja is well told. The true Deja has so much courage. She is relentless. She lives in the gym. She's an ultimate competitor. She's reliable. You can count on her. She's tough, right? All the other stuff is well told. It's just that's a different Deja than we get inside the lines, right? And then obviously with Alyssa, she's just she's tenacious. I mean, I don't care what we're playing. She's on my team, right? We're better if she's on my team, right? And so, I think she's a tough matchup for other teams because of her tenacity, right? And then Anya's probably got the highest basketball IQ on the team. I mean, she absolutely knows what's going on in all positions. And so that, coupled with the increased competitiveness around her, has risen her game. And then, Allie Z has just been such a staple. She's a true stretch 5. She has a very high basketball IQ. She plays the game because she loves it. And so you put all that together of people that came to this program with a true intention of being my first class. And it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to do it. And so as much as we all look down there and say, that's a nice team, I didn't do it alone. Those 4 really made this program attractive enough for Alexi and Maria and India, as well as our freshmen.
What was your approach in the portal, and what did the loss of Toddy and Eva, how did that impact your approach?
Well, the portal starting in basically February, you start checking it every day. Not me, but other people who then share it with me. And you start to know what we needed, right? We needed more speed. We needed better shot making. We needed, I thought, some high impact players that had already played at the Power 5, all the things, right? And so you start to kind of check it out, right? And see what might fit with what you have. So it's really not anything, it's not rocket science. It's really, there's a name in the portal. You can immediately attach film to it. If you've watched as much college basketball as we all have, we have a pretty good sense of who the good enough kids are. So you start to see how would that fit. You get on the phone with them and you find out pretty quickly that's a kid that, not really what they're looking for. Hey coach, I want to go to a place where I can start. It's like, well, there's plenty of programs for that, right? Or I want to go to a program where I can play at least 25 minutes. Right, but if that's how they're leading the conversation and they're not about what's on the front of their jersey, and that just doesn't work here, right? So, there's really no strategy besides monitor it and really know your team, and what's gonna bring you to the next level.
One phrase that I heard a few times talking to the players was they're not afraid to be vulnerable around each other. It feels like there's a lot of weight behind that. That's not something that people say lightly. Does that tie into what you think this team's doing, growing as a group?
Yeah, I'm really happy to hear that because it's a word I've really been hammering on them. That, I think the access that everyone has, they are managing so many relationships and so many things on this, and they think this is a relationship, right? And so they actually become less. This group has, this age group has become much less vulnerable. Try leading or following without vulnerability. That's what this age group tries to do, right? And so when you can, in the moment, not worry about what you're saying, but that you're saying it. So that made me feel uncomfortable, or I really liked that. Those are really powerful statements that we, as adults, have lived and know that. They wouldn't text that, so it goes unsaid, right? And so, leadership and followership is really important, and it starts with vulnerability, good, bad, and indifferent. And we think that's an important word for this team.
What's the vibe coming into this season? I know when I talked to Maria, she said, I want to win a national championship. Do you talk about the goals? Do you talk about what this team might be able to do, and what's the ceiling of this team?
I don't, but I'm a realist, and I know they do. And the more they talk, great. The more I get to yell in practice, right? And so, in terms of if that's what you want, this, and this aren't good enough, right? But I also don't want to squash their dreams. You shouldn't come to University of North Carolina if you're afraid to try to win a national championship. So I tell them to have courage, be vulnerable, and work, right? Reps. There's no replacement for discipline or reps in work, in this life, right? So I don't know the ceiling of this team yet. I'll know more as we ebb and flow and grow. I love our schedule because we'll have a lot of opportunities to do that. But I don't know yet. I think it always comes down to how your group rolls through it. How do they ride it, right? And some luck and timing are involved as well for part of that too, and who's healthy when, and all that good stuff. So I don't know the ceiling. I really worked hard for the roster that's here, and I'm really happy it's here.
So some coaches I know put a picture of the venue for the Final Four up in the dressing room and do things, but that's just not your philosophy.
Yeah, I think it's the great thing of coaching is that you have to do it to your personality. If you ask our guys, they would probably all tell you I'm very process driven. Like there is a process, right? And there is work, there is accountability, there's just a process to do anything, right? And so we don't need all the gimmicks and all of that. I don't, right? I need that if you want to be a top 5 draft pick, if you want to be a first round draft pick, if you want to be a Final Four potential, if you want to be, then there are things that have to happen, right? You have to grow day to day. You have to get better week to week. You have to put the time in. You have to, and so yeah, I don't. I barely know where the Final Four is. I hear it's Cleveland because I'm also the president of WBCA, and I wouldn't probably have gone to Cleveland if I didn't have to. But now I'll be going hopefully for both reasons. But yeah, no, it's October. I'm not going to worry too much about what happens in April.
Sports Extra.
Yeah.
I know that you brought Lexi onto your staff and that you got to recruit her to Princeton, you got to coach her there. So what does it mean to you, and what is it like to now get to work alongside her?
Oh, it's so great. So Lexi I recruited and then coached for a year. And when you have to walk in a locker room and tell them you're leaving, it's terrible. Because she had asked me on her home visit if I was staying. And I thought I was. And so, and then what happens is when you leave, even though I was her former coach, you can't have any contact with them. You can't use like a prior relationship because that's tampering. So I said goodbye and moved here the next day and I never went back, right? And so when she put herself in the portal or when she was graduating and all the things, she's like, Coach, I really want to look at going to grad school at Carolina so I can come on your staff. And that sort of started it. And she's got a really good basketball mind. She's done a lot already. She's live coding in our practices. She's helping with the post-practice sorters. I think she's got a real bright future in this business and what a great place to learn it. Because my standards are very high, and the university is a great place to learn because it's really supportive here. So really happy for her, and of course having Jalen and Liz, who I coached as well. I feel like I can almost guarantee you a job, I guess, if you come play for me.
Can you tell me about the cardboard sign outside the locker room?
Yeah, I actually just saw it a couple days ago too. I'm not sure. That was probably them. It's like it's clearly not me because I would have done something a little nicer than like a box from like the trash that they use or something. But I think it says Final Four loading. Is that what it says? Does it say Cleveland? Or I don't know what it says.
I took a quick picture of it, something along
Something
those
like that,
lines.
yeah. So I think it's something about you don't come into the locker room if you're not thinking like this and living like this. So again, they're just giving me whiteboard material, right? Because if that's what you're saying, then when you start to get a little finicky about playing time, let's talk about this is what you said you wanted, right? So they're just giving me opportunities to coach them, is what I look at it like.
And if they do want that, right, the schedule that you all are going to have to deal with, it's a lot. Are you really happy to see that? What are your thoughts when you look at just the challenges that are in front of you?
Yeah, it's so many. I mean, we have a chance to have Iowa and South Carolina back to back. That's with I think a game in between or two maybe, and before UConn. So, but the back-to-back 2 Final Four teams is a lot. And then of course even that tournament, Vermont brought everybody back from a tournament team a year ago, right? And Kansas State brought their 6'6" post back, who was a top 10 draft pick from a year. She wasn't on the team last year. She was out last year. So, there's just a challenge every opportunity. And when you have a really good team, that's what you want. So I wouldn't be so happy if my schedule was as good as it was and my team wasn't as good as it was, right? And so we'll learn a lot about our team. I've learned here more than anywhere, obviously more than at Princeton, that what actually matters is how well your team is playing in March. And so we've just got to use these opportunities to find out what we're actually really good at and where our weaknesses are. And I just believe this team we'll put the time in to make sure the weaknesses in November, December are not their weaknesses in February, March.
When you look around at the game, like from team number 1 to team 350 or whatever, do you feel like the talent across the board is as high as you've seen it in your years in the game?
That's a good question. I don't know. I feel like the talent is so good, at least in the teams I'm watching. The game is just such a great place. I mean, it's the athleticism. I mean, I'm with these kids all the time, and some of the things they do, I'm like, that's nice. You know, like some of these things are pretty remarkable, the way they move, you know, what they can do, and the creativity at the rim and things like that. But, you know, I'm probably showing my process mindset, but I'm sort of focused on my team right now. I haven't watched a lot of other teams yet. But the game is early. I mean, I watch obviously the WNBA, and I don't know, if you don't like the WNBA, you're not watching it. You know, it's really the level of basketball right now being played by women is pretty good.
And you talked about the importance of, you know, off the court bonding. What kind of activities do you guys do together?
Oh Lord, these guys compete all the time. We played what's it called, like Hollywood Games of Games or whatever that's called, and then we also play like Minute to Win It, Family Feud, pickleball, whitewater rafting. I mean, these guys are always competing. You know, pig after practice. You know, they're, you know, TikTok dance-offs. I mean, you name it. So we kind of do it all. This group really likes one another. So, you know, they go to the football games, or they go to the soccer games, or the Feel Lucky games together, and I'm sure they're competing on who can get in first and who has the better seat and all the things. So it's some of it's really scripted, and we can plan for it, and other things I think wiffle ball. I don't know, a lot of different things.
I heard from a couple different players that you were the best pickleball player. What do you have to say about that?
Facts. Prove it, right? Yeah, facts. Alyssa and Sydney gave us a run for our money, but you guys know I don't lose well. So.
Last year, you talked about wanting to host a regional in the 2023.
Yeah, I thought we did enough to host a regional.
Right. Obviously, strength of schedule coming into the season is crazy. Was that in the back of your mind when you were kind of trying to put together the schedule for the season?
No, I mean, with the way the net is ranked, it's actually doing what LSU does: play nobody and kick them by 50. Will get you a higher net RPI ranking than what we're doing. So no, I think when you have a good team, you want to go play anyone you can, right? And I want to see what we can do. I want to make sure we can grow into what we need to be. And if, you know, our strength of schedule was better than Tennessee's, and our record against top 25 was better, and they hosted. So I don't get to be in that room making those decisions, so I just can't worry about it. But what I don't want to have is work this hard to get a great team and then don't play anybody, right? Because then those are teams I can win. I'd rather work less hard then and beat them anyway, right? And so, you know, that came to be knowing we were going to be pretty good. Wanted to make sure we get to have a lot of chances against pretty good.
Coach,
Yeah.
you're in your 5th year. You're
Getting old.
in your 5th year. Can you just speak to kind of the culture that you've been creating? There's been just an increase in fans and
Yeah.
engagement. Even the people in this room, like, it wasn't this crowded years ago. Can you just speak to kind of the culture and like what you're creating for this program?
You know, it's part of the reason I came here. I believed in this place, right? I believed in my ability to be amongst, right? And the only thing I know to do is to work. And so it's funny, I got my hair cut the other day, and I opened the window on the way into the house, and my daughter goes, "Ooh, Mom, you got your hair cut?" And I said, "Yeah, and I got it colored too." And she says, "Oh, I like it gray." I was like, that's not nice. And she really meant it. Like, "Oh, you got gray. It's so nice." And I thought, gosh, that's how hard I've worked really over the last 4 years. No, but like I said, I came here with a purpose, and I wanted to be able to be amongst and to, you know, to play in that game, right? And there's a lot of gray hairs and a lot of sleepless nights and some self-doubt and some frustration, all webbed into where we are, right? And you know, there was no other way. It's like I tell all our guys, there's just no other way. Like, failure is just never an option. So we just got to keep going. But I'm really proud of the product that's out there, right? And like I said, I don't know how good we are. I don't know exactly how all the chips are going to fall, but you'll like watching these guys play basketball. That I can guarantee you. And I really love our roster, right? Which is kind of what it comes down to. But our staff is excellent. The way we carry ourselves, the support that the community has given us. You know, it's a lot of hard work, and I'm really happy that these guys are where they are now.
Back in July, I believe you talked about how Lexi might have more freedom than she did at Iowa State. She talked about it a little bit. What does that look like? What could she do that she wasn't permitted or the system didn't allow at Iowa State?
You know, she might have a better idea of what she wasn't allowed, but for us, it's, you know, remembering that, you know, that her shot chart should be as diverse as her skill set, right? We talk about that a lot. You know, if you're not just a stretch shooter, you're not just a driver and finisher at the rim, you're not just a defender, your game has commas, right? And so therefore the stat sheet should have commas, and the stat sheet that's connected to your video, which is your shot chart and your impact, needs to be comma too, right? And so sometimes she's trying to fit in, and she's come a long way, because she spent the first couple weeks trying to fit in, and I was just all over her, right? And she's gotten a lot more aggressive and, you know, having much more of a presence on the defensive end. Instead of like letting people figure it out, she's pretty adamant about the way we defend here now. So she gets better and better, and I think she's being pushed. I think she's really happy. She loves the level of competition, you know, because she's playing against good players every day, you know, and so she brings that, like, this is what we want, guys. We want good players, you know, mentality. She's been a great ad.
Since you've been here, you've seen so many changes in the game, just from
Lord.
NIL, COVID, transfer portal, all the buzzwords. Just want to ask, what has been the biggest change you've seen just in college basketball since coming to Chapel Hill?
I think the transfer portal, you know, the roster management that comes from that, the dig your heels in and go walk a journey with somebody. Some don't want to walk it back; they want to walk it differently. You know, and so that's probably been the thing that you spend time worrying about losing kids, and then you finally get old enough, like me, and have gray hair and realize that it's not about making people happy; it's about making people better. And some kids, while you make them better, they still want different, you know, or they want more, or whatever we can say there. Some kids, you make them better, and they love you forever, right? So my job here is to make kids better, right? And then find a way to win games along the way. And some are gonna stay, some are gonna go. We're gonna get ads, and I would be irresponsible not to monitor the portal, nor to recruit my butt off with younger guys. So I will continue to do both of those things. But the theme is I'm just going to get you better here. Don't worry about the rest. Will take care of itself.
Over the offseason, you had a few players with some Team USA experience. So obviously, Deja's on, you know, FIBA, and then Lexi and Alyssa do the 3-on-3. How have you kind of seen them come back different with, you know, with that, you know, kind of pro level type of experience?
Yeah, especially so Alyssa was invited to the 5-on-5 FIBA team, so we would have had 2 on the team, but she was nursing an injury, and wasn't the right decision for her to go. And so for her, even though she didn't play in it, she was like, "Coach, can you believe they asked me?" It's like, yeah, you're one of the very best players in the country, babe. You know, like, for her, it was like the validation that it's not just Coach who thinks I'm so great, right? So I think the confidence that came from that, even though she didn't play, that you don't get invited to that because they like you, right? And then, you know, Deja, I think it gave her an appreciation for the basketball IQ of some of her teammates here, right? It gave her appreciation. Whenever you step away and try something else, it either brings you closer or further from where you are, and brought her closer to where she is here. And then Lexi, because Lexi graduated, she was too close to graduation to transfer here as an undergrad. We didn't know that, so of course we were like, yeah, you should come. And she's like, I'll come. And then it was like, well, she can't get in unless she's a graduate transfer. So she took 18 summer credits to graduate from Iowa State this summer, while also starting our business school. And so I really give her a lot of credit for what she endured this summer to make herself eligible to be a Tar Heel. But because she was a grad transfer, she wasn't really allowed to train, because you have to be graduated then if you're a grad transfer, and she didn't graduate until August. But if you're on US, you're considered an elite athlete. So she had to go to US with, you know, while taking classes in between games, so that she could get elite status, so she could practice with our team. I mean, it was really, her summer was remarkable. But, you know, anytime you have experience at a high level outside of our team, it either brings you closer or further. And we got it pretty good here, so it brings people a lot closer to us.
And real quick off of that, when did Lexi begin to be allowed to train?
I'll have the dates wrong, because I remember I was asking compliance, and I actually went all the way to the NCAA. Like, this doesn't seem like, all she wants to do is play basketball with her teammates, and she's taking 18 credits here and in our business school. She's doing a lot to prove that she's a student athlete, but we just couldn't get out of that red tape. So whenever she went to USA Basketball and played in those, she gained enough points to be considered an elite athlete status. So it's it's someone can get that information, probably Dana. I don't know exactly. All the days for coaches are like the same, so it's like Groundhog Day. It's like it's a little nice out. It's getting a little chilly. It must be late October. You know?
Looking around at the other games on your non-conference schedule,
Mhm.
a lot of in-state teams,
Yeah.
Milan, Gardner-Webb, Davidson. Was that intentional by you to, schedule teams from North Carolina to play here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, obviously, anytime we can bring Charlotte Smith back, I know most of the fans are rooting for her over me, which is great. That's great. So am I. Outside of her team, but we love bringing Charlotte back when we can. Her team plays a great style of basketball, and who doesn't have stars in their eyes for Charlotte Smith, right? So that's kind of a gift to the university that we get to have a great amongst us, right here. And then Davidson, they're playing us, Duke and Wake, when we can have and they're a good mid-major team. They'll finish in the top 4 or 5, I think, that next year in the A10. So that's a good non-conference game for us. That's to have here. And then Greensboro, that's another Carolina alum that we can sometimes you subsidize their budget a little bit too. But yeah, when we can have some in-state rivalries or in-state teams here and get to be a part of what we're doing here, I know they're rooting for us when we're in ACC play, so we'd love to support them any way we can.
I know the school's opinion of adding 3 teams
Yeah.
to the ACC. What is your opinion overall and its impact on the league as a women's basketball conference?
Mm-hmm. I think as humans we're so change resistant. And I'm not. So I don't know if I have an opinion, right? It's 3 more teams, so I guess that means the home and homes with kind of our neighboring teams won't happen as much. I don't know because I've not seen a schedule, but I'm guessing by adding 3 teams, maybe we would only play a Duke twice and everybody else once. I think. I don't know. But as I say, you have to beat them all anyway at some point. Wherever they're from, whoever they are, I have to beat them. So you've given me more teams and more scouts and more opportunities. And does it give Dallas, I think, a good market in our recruiting base? And obviously what Stanford has done in basketball is exciting. So, I don't want to be unpopular either way. I don't know how it all play out, so I don't have much of an opinion about it. Welcome aboard, and I hope we charted that flight.
Close to wrapping up, is there anybody who hasn't gotten in their question yet who needs a
Yeah,
good
so
question?
Deja and Kelly mentioned that Maria is kind of this missing piece that you didn't have. How much do you kind of hold that sentiment, and how have you seen her taking a role on this team?
She's so good and so funny. So she is so awesome. I mean, she's got a lot to offer as a basketball player, but also she's just adored. Everyone on the team loves her. Me too. I'm like the president of the Maria fan club, but I got a lot of people fighting me for that. But yeah, she's a great shot blocker. She's really long. She's got a good finisher and around the rim. I think one of the good young bigs last year in the country. And she's only gotten better, because she's around really good players who give her more space. But yeah, I think her length and the way she moves has been really helpful to our team.
We need to wrap up and get Coach Banghart down to practice. Anybody have
real quick, you kind of touched on the schedule, but you don't have any repeat opponents this year. How do you kind of build a schedule almost from scratch? Obviously, you have the SEC challenge coming up, and then the Jumpman, you knew you were going to have a new opponent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we don't have a lot of home and homes, that kind of happens year to year, which is a bummer. So I almost think it happens every year, because you don't have a lot of home and homes. You either because of so many neutral site aways, or the SEC challenge, now a bigger ACC schedule, plus the Jordan Brand Classic, plus your Thanksgiving tournament to get neutral games. There's just not a lot of time in the schedule left for home and homes because you want to play home games when you can. And so, I think that happens just about every year, which is fine because our team's totally different as well. Does that answer your question?
And then following up on that real quick, when you have those Thanksgiving tournaments, you don't know who your second or third opponent's going to be.
Yeah.
How do you kind of build a schedule? Because people obviously have that probable/hypothetical Iowa matchup circle.
Yeah.
But how do you build a schedule when you don't necessarily know some of the opponents, or when you don't get your SEC challenge opponent right away, and you're kind of building around something of a question mark? We
knew the SEC challenge, given the power of our brand, was going to be one of the top 4 teams. I think that's just TV dictates that. So my guess is, for as long as we're all alive, we'll be playing one of the top 4 teams in the SEC challenge. So that one's taken care of. And the Jordan Brand Classic, yeah, like you said, we knew. And so for this tournament, we heard we might be able to get Iowa, and so part of it is that you kind of say, I want to make sure I'm getting a secure, very good team. Once they secure that, the details become the rest of it. But yeah, to your point, sometimes those tournaments don't turn out as competitive, and sometimes, like in this field, they're a big bite to chew. And that's kind of, I knew we were going to get UConn as a home and home or neutral. So like I said, we had a good team, so we're willing to swing a little bit on the schedule.
All right.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
No, of course.
Thank you.
Yes,